COVID showed us anything, it's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. And it's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves were empty.
We, the people, can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies or buying local is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another From the Farm Live. It's been a few weeks. I think the last show that Brooke and I did with y'all was the weekend before the election. We talked about our views and opinions on that and how we hope to see that go. And I'll tell you what, the day came and we couldn't be more relieved and blessed. We were holding bated breath for what we're up to. As you saw in the video, if you watched, we are committed to helping develop a food system of the future, one that puts our farmers and ranchers first before anything else. And we help the everyday consumer shake the hand that feeds them. This is a mission that we felt called to start in 2020. It's almost 5 years in the making. We spent 3.5 years asking farmers and ranchers what would actually work for them before we just before we even started to develop the software, because we wanted to know that if we did this, that it would actually work. It would actually serve them. Not to mention that I was selling beef for my family's ranch, so I was dealing with this firsthand. And everybody on our executive team is doing some sort of farming or ranching. Our COO has a farm selling direct to consumer. Our VP and co-founder, Brooke Entz, has a ranch that she's working on. My family and I have a small homestead where we do chickens, and we tried goats for the first run at that. Goats are a pain in the butt, if anybody's never told you that. And then we did a little bit of practice with some pigs. We got rid of them. I didn't have the infrastructure in place to keep them for very long, and I enjoyed them, so I wanted to get rid of them before I hated pigs. So we got rid of those a few weeks ago. And one thing I've learned from a friend of mine, Steve Jarvis from Out of the Wild 3D, is that everything follows order, and we keep trying to do things a little out of order, and that bites us in the butt. So anyway, we're working on it. I think the first thing that we're going to do here on our homestead is work with Food Forest Abundance. If you don't know those guys, check them out. They're an affiliate partner of ours. But what they do is they help build food forests. They can start anywhere from a 1/4 acre or less. So if you have a small backyard, but decent enough to do a food forest, they'll take satellite images of your property, combine that with everything they know about your growing zone, and just put all that together. And then they help you design and implement a food forest that actually is very low maintenance. So the trees and the shrubs and the plants, they all interact and work with each other so that it doesn't require as much maintenance. So I'm going to do that on our property here so we can start there. I'm doing a lot of traveling, so we kind of have to set up for what doesn't need my attention every single day, at least in the beginning. Anyway, so that's who we are, what we're about. I hope you guys had a chance to catch that video. I want to share with you guys some updates. So recently we just hit 56 live producers across the nation. So what you're looking at is the map of farmers and ranchers that we currently have on fromthefarm.org that you can buy from directly. Our first goal was to have enough producers across the nation that no matter where you ordered from, you could get it within 2-day ground. I think we've hit that goal. Maybe if you're way up in the far northeast of Maine, maybe not, but for the most part, no matter where you're at in the country, you can order on fromthefarm.org and get it right from the farmer and rancher that's growing it. That was a big deal for us. Our next goal is that we want, of course, a farm and ranch in every state, and we'll get there, especially with your all's help. We've been very grateful and blessed for the community that's come behind From the Farm to help us build a new food system. Last thing I want to update you on before I bring our guest in. We've got a guest today, Brad from Three Sons Ranch. Before I bring him on, I want to share with you guys where we're at with our crowdfunding. So currently, we launched this in October, I believe, which you could have looked at that and said, man, October, that's quite a time to try to raise money in crowdfunding, because everybody was getting texts 3, 4, 5 times a day to donate to your candidate. And then we had all the tragedies with the weather, especially Western North Carolina, a lot of people supporting there. Was not the best time to launch a crowdfunding, but man, let me tell you, to hit $212,000 invested from 239 people that are backing this, people that want to see a new food system, we couldn't be more grateful. So anyway, lots of success, lots of growth, lots to do still. We've got a team of 7 or 8 full-time software developers constantly working on features to upgrade and also to improve what we already have. And with that, before I move on to Brad, my last request, if you're listening to this, do us a favor, if you don't mind, spend a few moments of your time and go to fromthefarm.org and share with me the feedback. We have a phone number and an email address at the bottom of the page, but even if you decide not to purchase, what we could really use is your feedback on how the service is working for you. Anything matters. We are developing and building this by and for the people. So like I said, we took 3.5 years of asking questions before launching, before building the software, because I wanted to know from the producers what would help them if we built a new marketplace. Now we're in the phase where you can use the software, and we're asking you to test it. Let us know what you think so we can improve the customer side as well. All right. With that said, I'm going to bring Brad on and introduce you guys, and we're going to have a great conversation. Brad, welcome to the show, brother. Good to have you here.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So just to catch the audience up, if you went to my Instagram A.J_Richards. I have some stories on there and I got some videos I'm going to edit. I came out to your place yesterday. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago, man.
2 days, yeah.
Days are blending.
I can sympathize.
Yeah. So came up there on Friday. We bought a share of beef from y'all and we ordered that a couple of months ago. You were finishing them out for us. And so we got to pick that up from you yesterday. Really excited to try that. I think she's got something planned for tonight. So, so Brad, you guys are Paradise Valley, Big Timber area.
Yeah, we're Big Timber, so it's just east of Paradise Valley, so about 40 or 50 miles east of Paradise Valley.
Okay, great. And that's in Montana. You're kind of between Bozeman and Billings.
Yeah, pretty much almost right in
right.
Bozeman.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful country, man, driving up there. You guys get any snow today?
No, it's it's kind of overcast and windy. It's trying, but we haven't got moisture yet, but I think it's coming for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. We were up harvesting trees this morning and there was a blizzard up there in the top of the Shoshones just above Cody. So
right. Yeah.
Somebody's getting some moisture, but we're not getting it down in our lower country yet.
Sure.
So Brad, okay, so let me play this quick video and then we're going to go into some more. This is my time there, a little bit of time I had with you guys yesterday.
Yeah.
Every single person that's seen that's like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it is cool. I like that. All right, y'all. So I made it to Brad's Ranch, spent the day together learning about them, and this is the beef we're picking up, take home. So you guys can find them on fromthefarm.com, not .com, fromthefarm.org/3 Sons, or just type 3 Sons in the search. Brad, you deliver to Florida?
We're delivering to Florida, Phoenix, or the surrounding areas, and then the routes down through. So pretty much anywhere between Montana and Florida, which covers, Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee, Kentucky,
Nice.
Georgia, Alabama. So pretty much anywhere that we can make it happen.
Cool.
So
And do you have a delivery fee on there, or you put it into one route?
we just do it into one route. So normally, if it's quarters, halves, and wholes, we just have a flat delivery fee.
Awesome.
And that flat delivery fee is usually like $100, and so that will range anywhere from a quarter is 100 pounds of beef, somewhere in that ballpark, all the way up to a 400-pound order for a whole beef.
Yeah.
So we just do a flat shipping rate.
Cool. Brad's going to join us on the podcast on Sunday, be 4:00. So come on and kind of learn about their operation up here in Big Timber, Montana, and how you can get their beef at your house. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, awesome.
This is
Good to have
exciting. Awesome. That was your wife, Paige.
Yes.
Yeah. While I was watching that video, man, I knew you guys built your house. So I was looking at all those sheets of drywall in your garage.
Right.
Because I just got done with mine and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah. It's when you come out of just building one, you're the drywall and the taping and the mudding and the painting, you're really glad when you're done, AJ. I'll tell you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Especially when you're working the ground too. You just can't wait to get to the ground, but you got to get your shelter first.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself. So you come to Montana by way of Florida.
Yep.
Okay. So tell us about how you grew up. Did you grow up agriculture, rural? What was that like?
Yeah, pretty rural. We grew up, I've been in and out, or I wouldn't say out, mostly always in some form of ag my entire life. Where we grew up, you had a lot of, the agricultural industry was, lots and lots of orange groves, and then cattle businesses, and then and timber. That was usually those were the three big things in that area. And believe it or not, there's probably more cattle, or there always was. I don't know if it is today or not, but in the state of Florida, there's more cattle there than there is just about anywhere, just simply because the growing season is pretty much almost 12 months a year. The grass really never stops. So
Yeah.
It's an easy place to graze a lot of cattle for sure. And so my family was always involved in whether it be cattle and small row crop farming, and mostly cattle and timber was a lot what we did. And then Paige's family was more into the row crop farming and orange groves and stuff like that. So we grew up in an area that was very rural at the time of us being kids, and then, like a lot of us have seen over the years, those areas become bedroom communities of bigger areas, and then the ground unfortunately becomes worth more than it will ever produce. And in those days, I was my voice as to whether or not I felt like things should be sold wasn't heard as much as it would be now. But
Yeah.
I totally understand, when you have family that spends a lot of time working really hard and they do those things, and then you have big land developers that come in with lots of money and big checks. That's the way it is, especially when they're in the business world. That's what they do. And I had family that they put pen to paper and they just say, hey, it'd take a couple lifetimes for the ground to produce what it's what we're being offered here. So long story short, that's kind of how that happened. When I was young, I'd gone away to Oklahoma State's horseshoeing school when that was kind of something I delved off into. Horses was something that was always a big part of us. And so I kind of gravitated towards that direction. Went away to school and came back home, started a farrier practice with that. And then my wife and I had known each other since we were children, but we kind of drifted apart and went our own separate ways, and then drifted back together. And then got married and started thinking about kids. And then you start thinking about things like insurance and how sometimes a one-man operation as a farrier might be detrimental if you were to get hurt and not be able to provide and those kind of things, right? So I thought I might go into something that would be a lot less dangerous. And so with my feeble mind thought that law enforcement would be a great idea because it comes with insurance and they give you body armor. So that's pretty good. That seems to be safe, right? So I went into law enforcement and it was great. And I love it. And I'm still in that line of work as well. And so anyway, that area continued to grow. Our boys were very little, and we started seeing that they would not have the opportunity that Paige and I had growing up in a rural atmosphere. Ag was disappearing in that area quite rapidly. The folks that were hanging on to it were hanging on to it, but it was difficult. When you see areas that are generational farms and ranches that are slowly being encompassed and enveloped by housing developments and stuff like that. So we decided that for our boys to be able to have the life and understand ag and live the way we live, that we were going to have to relocate. So our option was we really had a draw to come to Montana. And so we did. So we relocated to Montana and did not start right back in ag, obviously, because we were starting from ground zero, essentially. And so built ourselves around getting back and getting our family settled. So we got our family settled and then continued to push to get ourselves to a position to where we could be where we are now. And so we ended up being able to buy the ranch and get started with basically a yearling outfit, and got a yearling outfit started going and doing really well, and things were going well with that. But still, we were still in that commercial cattle market, and that's kind of that was the only thing I really knew at that point. And then I started trying.
Just real quick, Brad. So for those that don't know, commercial cattle market, what is that?
So basically, that's where you're either whether you're a cow calf operation where you're raising calves, or if you're feeding yearlings, you're selling cattle at what would be considered a weight. Let's say it's anywhere between 750 and 800 pounds. You sell them in the fall, and those cattle then are transferred. They're considered feeder cattle, and then those cattle go into big feedlots and whatnot, and then they finish those cattle to go to butcher.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's great. So cow calf is, just for those that don't know, it's you have mama cows. Your operation is really focused on mama cows, getting good pregnancy checks, having babies. You want herds that, all your female cows are producing calves, baby cows. That's the goal of the cow calf operation. And they'll cull their herds if they call it open. So if you go preg check to see if one's pregnant and she's not, then as a producer, you have to make a determination, I got to get rid of her because I'm only a cow calf. And if you ain't giving me babies, you got to go somewhere else. Or if they are giving you babies, you keep your herd and you want a strong herd that's producing lots of babies.
Correct.
Then when you said yearlings, you basically 1-year-olds, they're no longer on their mom, not suckling milk anymore. Now they can just be fed. So they get sent to the auction, sold at a certain weight, whatever that target is for that producer.
Mm-hmm.
And then people that buy those 1-year-olds will finish them out. Now, when you say feeder cows, does that basically mean everything else with them is done? They just got to be fed until they're ready for slaughter. Is that an easy way?
Essentially the feeders, that's kind of where they're at. They're kind of at that spot to where they're ready to start being finished now.
Gotcha. Yep.
And so they're moving into that. They're moving into that weight of now they're pushing on to that, to that slaughter weight, whether it between 12 and 1,500 pounds, whatever that particular weight is. So then they ship them off, and that's when, and that's typically what we were doing. We would buy those cattle in the spring, right? And then, so we buy them in April or May, we'd go to grass in June, and then we'd graze them all summer. And, we try to target and if we can get a 2 pound per day gain on them, that's really good. So if we can gain 2 pounds a day and we graze them for, 120 days, obviously that equates somewhere between 200 and 240 pounds, hopefully. And then we sell them, and then that's how we make our profit, is on that weight that we gained through the summer. And then those cattle, we sell them, they come to the ranch, pick them up, we load them on a semi, and they're gone. And then those cattle typically go to the next stage, and that next stage would be for them to head off to whoever's going to finish them and feed them. And usually when you sell in the fall, those cattle are going for what's called the April fat cattle market. So those cows that they buy in the fall, say November, have a kind of maybe a projected date with destiny, if you will, sometime in April. They're going to get sold on the block to be slaughtered or what have you. That's kind of the market that you're shooting for, right? So that's traditionally the commercial model is kind of how that works. And there's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of ranchers that's the model that we utilize, right? However, there's some other ways. And I think one of the things for us is looking at it to see if there was another way that would be something that could be a little more sustainable for the ranch, something that we could have a little more skin in the game, something we had a little more say in how those beef cattle were finished, and then maybe have a little better idea of knowing where they end up, as far as, we actually know where they go, who gets them. We know the families that are involved in the beef that they're eating. They know us. Excuse me. And I think for us, that was a big deal too, because, and I put something out on a social media post one time, 6 or 8 months ago, and trying to talk about the relationship between a rancher or a farmer and their livestock is kind of tough, because you're essentially raising this animal with the end result. We all know what the end result is, right? Because if you eat meat, that we know that they're going to be butchered. That's what they're here for, right? That's what we're raising them for. However, at the same time, you'll go out and weather the storm in 20 below weather to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
And to make sure that they're getting the best care that they can possibly get. You do soil samples to make sure that your hay is producing well, and you put up the best hay that you can put up, and provide them with the best water sources that we can provide to them, and just the hours and hours and hours that you take on that. It only seemed right, for if you're going to put that much care into it, that maybe we should see it all the way to the end. Instead of putting all that care into them and shipping them off. And this is no dig on the commercial market at all. Zero. Sure. Yeah. Because it is 100% necessary. And we still, and to this day, until, we still have, like, even to this year, we sold some cows through the commercial market, because that's what we had to do to, to make some to make some ends meet in certain places, right? Until we're totally to the point, we would love to have the ranch where the ranch is completely sufficient or sustaining direct beef.
Yeah.
We can actually say we know exactly where ear tag number 44 went from birth
Yep.
to butcher.
Yep.
Which is kind of, it's important. You do take on it takes on a little different feeling, actually.
Yeah. Birth to butcher to the family that's eating it.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
it's one of the things we talk about too, is it's pretty interesting to be able to tell someone that, the only hands that have ever touched the beef that, that you're enjoying or your family has is my family.
Yep.
Our USDA butcher and you, and that's it. There's nobody else in between. Like it's us. And and so that's kind of it's a little different route. It's a different thing. I take a little ribbing for sure, because I have, tons of family and friends, and most of them, the vast majority, are in the commercial market, and it works really good for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't take anything away from that. It's 100%. It's a necessity to feed the billions of people that we have on this planet. We have to have certain outs, but I think having options and being able to do things a different way is pretty important as well.
Do you think it's possible to be profitable enough to stay in business if you're a small operation with a couple hundred head? I mean, I know there's a couple hundred head of mamas versus,
Sure.
if you have a couple hundred yearlings and you're just finishing them out. But
Sure.
do you think it's possible to be viable by just selling into the feeder market as a small producer? Because I like you said, I know bigger producers, much larger producers, and because of volume, they do great. They make a lot of money, but they've got hundreds of thousands of acres of ground, and a lot of them are the cow calf all the way through to the feedlot or to the auction, right? And I see them doing well, but when the average producer across the nation has about 150 to 200 head of cows, and they're running on lease land, and back in the West where we're at, most of that's burned up, dried out, so there's carrying capacities very low. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious your feelings on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on, so the commercial market really is one that is based on numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more numbers you have, obviously the more money you're going to make, and that's true in any whether you're in the commercial market, you're in the direct beef market, the more cows you sell, the more money you're going to make. Right. However, that being said, if we're focusing on someone who has, if you're running 200 head, right, which is very similar kind of to where we stand, whether you're running cow calf, mom, pairs, or you're running yearlings, without a doubt, there's more money. For sure, the sustainability is if you're selling beef directly to a customer, you're going to make more money. There's no question about that. Now, that also comes with a lot more time. You're spending a lot more. There's more headache involved, if you want to say that, right? So there's give and take, right? There definitely is. I think for the smaller producers, I think if they are open to maybe a slightly different business model, I think they would find that that their yield as far as dollars per head will be higher. Sure. Depending on if they, again, there's variables there. Do you have the ground? Do you have the feed for them without having to buy the feed? These are all big variables, right?
Well, and something that was been on my mind from your introducing yourself earlier that also plays into that, and it's the feed conversation. Florida has a lot of feed, but the protein content is really low, right? Cool. So most consumers have no idea that, like when you talked about 2 pounds a day gain, the amount of precision that you're working to put into your operation so that you know exactly what you need to get them finished. So if they're not getting 2 pounds a day, what's going on? What's wrong with my feed? What is it? My water? Is it my nutrients? But then back to the Florida conversation, I asked my cousin, cause he's got a ranch in Nevada, just nothing but just desert, sagebrush and greasewood and juniper, or what are those cactus called? But anyway, and then he's got a ranch in Florida, in Orange Hammock. So he's got both drastic environments. So he flies to one and then comes back to the other. I'm like, man, can't you carry, like, how do you not have so much more cattle in Florida than you do here? And he said, well, the protein content isn't high. You would think that we could just load them up, but the
Yep.
forage there doesn't have as much protein, and that limits us still.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. You can graze more animal units per acre there, but your gains may not be what they would be in country like we have here. We have less grass, but the quality of the grass here is very, very good, depending on the
Right.
ground, obviously.
Right. Right.
And we have the ability to be able to grow alfalfa and things that carry a lot of crude protein,
Yeah.
which is what builds the muscle. That's where the weight gain comes from.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point for sure.
Yeah. What do you think needs to happen so as a producer, you had to go through certain thought process. Did you always plan to go direct? Was that always on the plan for you?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. It was and I say definitely not. And the only reason I say definitely not is because, some of if nobody likes change, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would hazard to say that ranchers in particular like to do things the way they know how to do things, right?
Mhm.
And then that old adage of, we do it this way because that's the way we've always done it was coined because typically it works, right?
Mm.
However, sometimes there can be a better mousetrap, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you have to do is, for me, I was looking at it again. This is the first time for me that when your name is on all the paperwork, you start to look at things a little differently.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, and I have this conversation with my boys all the time because, if you have calves and so now our methods of trying to handle cattle, we want to do it in the least stressful way that we can. It's not as fun when you're a cowboy,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you want to go in, if you have calves that need to be checked on or one that maybe is sick that needs to be doctored or whatever, it's more fun to take a horse and rope them and doctor them because that's what cowboys do.
Right.
And I sympathize with that because it is more fun. However, we're coming on to better ways of doing that now without having to stress them out so much.
Yeah.
And again, when you sign the checks to purchase those cattle, you look at them a little differently than you're like, well, we'll just go rope them. And we're like, well, let's maybe think of something that we can do that maybe won't stress them out quite so bad.
Yeah.
Now, do we have to rope and doctor some? Absolutely. You just have
Yep.
to. There's just no other way to get it done. But if you can do it another way, then we should look at that. And that's kind of how it was for us with direct beef as we started looking at other things. And I was like, how can we take these and maximize our effort? The effort and the work that we put in is not a problem. I don't pencil out my hours.
Yeah. Right.
Because it'll kind of hurt your feelings if you do that.
Yeah.
Right? And,
Plus, there's also a little bit more you get out of it than just the dollar amount.
right, exactly. And I think that's the other thing too, is there's a certain amount of and you and I might have talked about this before too. There's a certain amount of satisfaction that goes into picking that meat up from a USDA butcher, and you pick up 3 or 4 head of beef that you've had processed for customers, and then you look and see your label on that, and that that's a steer that you have raised, taken care of, and his ear tag number is on that invoice, and then now he's going to that's what he was here to do, right?
Yeah.
And it means a lot more. So it wasn't always on the horizon, but then when we started kind of drifting that way, we really see it as the future now.
Yeah.
And again, the part that's more than just the dollar amount is the fact that you're actually, like, we know where those cows go. I can pick the phone up and call the person who had hamburgers tonight because they got that cows, or they had, they've got a prime rib roast that they can't wait to cook for Christmas and feed their family. And and not that it's just kind of, maybe it's corny and cliche to think about it that way, but then when you can think about, hey, you know what, there's a family that's in Phoenix or Dallas or, even just down the road here, that is sitting around and enjoying Christmas dinner on a piece of beef that me or one of my boys or Paige or whatever, sweated over, trying to get him unstuck out of the fence or whatever,
Yeah.
into that day. Just it does take on a little different meaning, and a good one for us. Like it's a good fit for us.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, as a consumer, and I think that's the thing that we really need to get back to as a society, really, as a whole, is our connection to our food, because it's so crucial. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said this, some broken record, but human beings need food, shelter, safety, right?
Yep.
3 most important needs. I'll just put water in there with food.
Sure.
So you need food, shelter, safety. And, I grew up in a Christian home. I'm Christian, and we pray for our dinner, and we ask, the Lord to bless it and have it help and strengthen our bodies and all that, all the things that matter. And you're connected in that meal when you're there. And I remember just recently, just blessing our food recently. And you would always say, bless the food and the hands that prepared it and grew it. Right.
Yeah.
There's a real difference when blessing our food, when I say those words and I can see you and your family. I can see Zach down the road who grew our vegetables. I can see Stanley, who we buy our raw dairy from, in my mind. Like the difference in the experience for our meal as a whole is just made better because we know the family's responsible for it. That's kind of esoteric. I mean, the value is esoteric and spiritual beyond the nutrient density, beyond knowing that it doesn't have anything in it that we don't want to put under our bodies, beyond knowing that the soil that fed the microbiology that fed the soil, that fed the plants, that fed the nutrients in the food, all of those are all value. But then you add this other layer of your spiritual connection to your food, and just that realization. And I'll tell you, I didn't know that was something I would experience until recently, blessing the food. And I was like, wow, that's way different. I mean, really is. So I would say, I wouldn't discredit that, right? It makes a big difference. I mean, in fact, when we unloaded your beef and we pulled out the rib roast, oh man, I'm already picturing like, who do I want to eat this with? Like I'm picturing gathering around the table around this rib roast that I cannot wait to cut into, and the people I'm going to share that with, right? It was already like, okay, who can we have over for dinner when we cook these? Because, there's just, it is special. It is different. So that's cool.
I think that's a really good point. I've got a friend visiting from down south, and his family was here. We were talking about that the other day, and I think we sometimes, especially, and you and I share in our faith background, and you talk about, biblically, when they talk about people breaking bread together and stuff, and that was kind of it was almost a ceremony, really, when you look at it. And when you think about that, it's a pretty special time, right? I think in our world today, we lose track of that a little bit. It's on the go. We just got you just got to get something in you so that you can keep going, right? But I think if we stop, excuse me, and just take 2 seconds to think about, like this is something that I have to do. If I don't do this, I'll die. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Right.
And if you take time to think about those times together, and when I was a kid, it was a little different. You really spent a lot of time at mealtime. It was something that was kind of important. Everybody got together, everybody sat down, and we try to do that as much as we possibly can with our family now, and take that time to utilize that mealtime to realize that it is important, and it goes beyond just the food that you're sharing. And so I think those are really good points, and the fact that when you're talking about, you pray over something, you bless the hands who prepared it, and those that grow it. I think most of us have that, at least a version of that in your prayer at mealtime, and I think it's kind of nice to pause for a second and actually think about, what does that actually mean, instead of it just being words. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and there's something.
This is a grain fed.
I jumped the gun on that. Let me play this video real quick, and I have a question for you. I'm going to go a little bit different direction because I want people to hear a little bit more about what we talked about regarding how this working in the ground and in nature balances other parts of your life.
Yeah, sure.
So just play this real quick.
This is beef, and this is a grain-fattened cocktail of chemicals and hormones that wreaks havoc on your body slowly over time, while you don't even notice. Choose wisely. The 4 major companies that produce most of what you eat are more loyal to their bottom line than they are to your health. And so, in order to give your food a longer shelf life or a higher yield, they treat it with chemicals, including carbon monoxide, to keep it looking pretty while they ship it thousands of miles. This process cuts the nutritional value of the meat by up to 40%. The bottom line is this: they are selling you jacked up meat. No wonder our health is in decline. But the good news is this: healthier, less modified options are literally in your backyard. That's where From the Farm comes in. It's an industry-disruptive platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that is as easy to use as Airbnb. This cuts out all the supply chain bullshit and gives you healthier meat from healthier cows. From the Farm was founded by AJ Richards, an active homesteader, and Brooke Entz, a CrossFit Games athlete and an Amazonian warrior in the movies Wonder Woman and Justice League. She clearly has a passion for healthy food and a healthy lifestyle. And since both AJ and Brooke come from generations of ranchers and farmers, they know what they're talking about. A healthy choice is always the better choice. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
All right. I played that one because this is my least favorite, and I needed a rancher on the podcast to break it down a little bit. I say it's my least favorite because it's tricky. We talked about the big system that we have and that we need. We absolutely cannot survive as a nation if we just turn the power off to our big processors. We have 320 million Americans to feed. Right. Cattle numbers I read recently are the level of 1948. In other words, about 87 million head of cows. That's mamas, babies, bulls. That's all beef That's all beef cattle. That's not counting your dairy, but that's all beef cattle. So because we have complicated our food system so much for the benefit of a few, it's a tricky topic. Right? It's like you wish it was just black and white, but it really isn't. So when it talks about the quality and the nutrient density and so forth in the beef, I think what people need to really know is that there are some in the commercial market, it's a just-in-time engine. Everything has to be done for efficiency, right? Because they've got the feedlots, they've got the slaughterhouses, they've got the rail cars that bring the live cattle into the feed market. And if we didn't have that system where everything is just in time, we wouldn't be feeding 320 million people. Now, if, we could rewind the clock and the get big and get out movement didn't start, perhaps what we would have seen is hundreds of thousands of millions of small family farms and ranches. Right now, we only have 1.8 million farms and ranches. In the 30s, we had 6 million. So we're way down with way more population. So if there was a fork in the road and it didn't fork off, we would see 10 million 40-acre farms, 20 million 40-acre farms producing food for their local communities all across the country. That is not where we're at. So when we talk about the things that people need to be aware of in the commercial market, the hard part is it's hard to tell you where it would come from. For example, we import so much beef from foreign countries. They claim that it's USDA certified. So they'll raise it and kill it in South Africa, Brazil, or whatever, and then send it over, but it's already been stamped as USDA approved in South Africa. Well, I'm telling you, the rules and regulations I have to follow inside of America as a USDA slaughterhouse are far more strict than what they're dealing with down south or wherever else they're sending them in from. So the concern is, what are they doing to cut corners, to fatten those cattle faster, because that's how they make more money. We have seen videos, and we know this is fact, that in some operations, they'll take old candy that's been outdated, and then they'll bring it into this facility and they'll throw candy and wrappers and all into this big grinder, grind it up, and feed it straight to the cows. So now you've got microplastics in your beef. So the challenge is we don't know who is doing that where precisely.
Mhm.
And that's really the issue. So I'm not saying that go into your local Walmart or go into your local HEB or go whatever and just buying the simply labeled product is guaranteed to have the problem in there.
Right.
But the problem is we don't know. And we
That's right.
also know that there has been organizations that have manipulated label laws in a way that they don't have to claim certain things.
Mhm.
Right. Like one of the things I've heard it myself from right from the mouth of people involved in this conversation. It was one state in particular. I can't remember the state. They were arguing over whether or not they should even tell you if they put the mRNA vaccine in it.
Right.
Like they could just do it and they don't have to label it. Right.
Right.
To me, that's wrong. That's if you don't care, great.
Whatever.
If you do care, how do you get to choose if nobody's telling you? Right. So anyway, that video is a hard one for me because it's true. And we could talk about that video for an hour about the differences in beef and what they put into it to make it shelf stable or make it look pretty and so forth.
Sure.
But overall, what we're talking about in a new food system takes out all the question. Because if I can call you, Brad, and say, Brad, I'm looking for a whole beef. This is the things that matter to me. This is what I don't want in it. This is how I want it treated.
Yep.
You can say, great, I can do that. Or you
Yep.
can say, sorry, that's not how it works for us. You can go somewhere else. Right. But having that ability to know, if you go to the butcher counter in Costco and say, hey, how did they finish this beef or did they give it any antibiotics? Or they're not going to know because they're 30 people down the line from where that thing first started, if not more, So anyway.
No, I think you're right on the money. And I think again, it is tricky because it's one of those things that we know it's necessary for a certain amount, right? We know that has to happen. The problem is it's hard to say. Again, you don't know, right? But what I would say is we can focus on what we do know.
Yes.
So what I do know is I can tell you anything you want to know about beef that comes off of this ranch. Anything you know. I can show you exactly what they eat. We can show you exactly how they're handled. I mean, and it's not rocket science, really. It's not. God made them a certain way, and they do pretty good if you just let them do what they're supposed to do, So, and you kind of got a pretty good just a overall bird's eye view. It doesn't take me hours and hours to explain what goes on here at the ranch. We can just get in the truck and ride through.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what they do. They eat this grass, and we finish them this way, and this is how it is. And we don't get in the way.
Yeah.
Of the things that happen naturally in the way that they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I don't need to give them anything to make that beef look red and have that beef be full of nutrients because it's there naturally.
Yeah, from nature. Yep.
From nature, right? Exactly. From the feed that they eat, that's here. That's just right here. What we don't know is, or what we do know is that everything is by the pound, right? The more pounds means the more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that if you can make them heavier, they're going to make you more money. And the ways that we all know that there's lots and lots of ways that can be accomplished. Like you said, the candy stuff, the trick is to make them as fat and heavy as you can for as little money as you can actually put into them, and then charge as much money as you can.
Yeah.
It's the epitome of buy low and sell high. That's what you do. And I mean, in a free market world, that's how we succeed, right? However, I'm not willing to compromise my family's integrity or my own integrity for dollars. It just won't. It won't work that way. Now, you may say I can go and buy this beef cheaper somewhere else, and you probably can. And that's okay. I would hazard to say that if you price it out like as a whole or a half, you probably won't. It'll feel like it's cheaper, but it's not. But what I will promise you is I can promise you that I can tell you every single thing that was in that critter's system prior to it being vacuum sealed in that pack with our label put on it.
Yep.
There's no meat counter clerk in any grocery store that can do that for you. There's no way.
Right.
It's not possible. We get a lot of sunshine blown on us sometimes with these things that, there's a big difference in product of the USA and raised in the USA.
Yes.
That's a different thing. And we could go into that in depth.
Yeah.
And talk for hours on it. But to me, I don't like that. That's misleading at best, let's say.
Yeah.
And we know that that's how the game is played. I'm not interested in that game. And if other folks are not interested in that game, that's who I'm here to help. That's who I want to serve. Those are our people. And there's nothing wrong if you're like, listen, I just don't have time to deal with that. Like I'm good with it. We've been buying beef at whatever, grocery store chain or wherever you've been getting it. And that's fine. I'm not trying to get in anybody's way with that.
Right.
What I'm saying is if you're not quite sure about that and that bothers you a little bit, and you'd like to know that 1 pound of ground that you have is just one animal, and not a bunch.
Yeah.
They
just tested it recently from the commodity side, and one package of ground beef had like 5,000 different strains of genetics.
True.
Now, I don't know what that does to a person, but I'd like to know that my ground beef came from one cow.
Yeah, sure. Well, and that's the thing. The good thing about us is whether if you did a DNA sample on that rib roast that you have, and then pulled a DNA sample on a pack of ground that you got, it will be the same. It's the same critter.
Yep.
It's just him. That's it.
Right. Less forensic science to track down. If I bought that pound with 5,000 genetics in it, you're talking about 5,000 more opportunities to have that come from a not so great nefarious source.
Something could be going on. Let's just say.
Yeah. Okay. I want to shift real quick at the end of this, Brad, because I think there's one of the things about where we are as a country right now is there are millions of people. Their social media feed is clear full of ranching and farming and homesteading and, making food from scratch. I mean, this Make America Healthy is a major topic for many people, right? Yeah. And so they're starting to do that. And a lot of people, they've been doing this. Their feeds have been full since COVID. Like they're just itching for a way to get out, and they've got different jobs and things they're in. Sure. You're the sheriff of Paradise Valley, and you've been in law enforcement your pretty much your entire adult life, and you shared some things with me. I know while you were in Florida, things were more people, more problems, right? Sure. And as a combat veteran, going through mental health and going through working through PTSD or all the things that come from sheepdog living.
Agreed.
There's just something about being out in nature, right? So you work a full shift as the sheriff, and then you've got all the responsibility of the ranch, that is not a full-time job. It is 5 full-time jobs. I mean, it's like we were talking about. You guys vacation. What's a vacation? You got mouths to feed every single day, 365 days a year. If you're leaving, somebody's watching your animals for you. So it ain't easy, right?
Right.
So why? My question for you is why? What do you get out of being on a ranch? How does that balance your life? What's that like for you?
For me, we talked about this the other day. It's a huge part of, like for me, it's pure mental health, really. It does give that balance of, there's something very satisfying, being close to the land. And I've had that experience since I was very, very young. Just spending a lot of time on the land, whether you were working the land or just being present in it, away from things that are completely man-made and no concrete, watching things. And we talk a lot about things that just happen naturally. It's pretty awesome to just sit and watch cows and calves be together, watch cattle when they move a certain way. They don't do things. It's not everything is just happenstance. Like you can watch them, and if you take 5 minutes and just breathe and watch them actually do something, you can tell that there's a purpose there and things are happening. And we overlook a lot of that kind of stuff when you live a fast-paced life, and especially when you live when you have a profession that is unfortunately can be surrounded by violence and or things that people shouldn't have to see, and that's something that you just deal with. But no matter what you do for a living, and no matter who you are, your life would be enhanced by being close to the land, whether that's your own land, whether that's a friend. That's why we encourage, like, anybody that ever buys beef from us and stuff, we sell beef to folks that that the fact that there are still places that actually grow cows, right? That's very foreign. Like, they don't get to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we do it all the time. We open that invite to say, hey, if you're ever in the area and you want to just come and see what it's all about, just if you want, it's 30 minutes. If you want to just stop by, call us, let us know, come by. And if you want to take 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 2 hours, and just take a break for a second, like, take a breath. For my mental health, it's huge. I mentioned I have a friend here that's visiting from down south, and same thing, career law enforcement guy, 30 plus years. And if he comes out with his family, they don't want to have an itinerary. They don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
They just want to be present and be somewhere where they can't hear anything. And go out and be able to see, and it sounds corny and cliche, but just do it. It's something that is different. And when you go to a place and you come to a place that has no ambient light, no cities close by, and you stand outside at night and see what that looks like, you will get the feeling you're very small. You also get the feeling that this place that we live in is perfectly designed, and there's no question about that.
Yeah.
And for me, the ranch is my solitude, if you will. It helps to keep me balanced. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of stress involved. But it is one of those things for me. And if it's for you, you do it willingly. And it never, I shouldn't say it never feels like a job, but it never feels like a daunting task, let's say. It's a job and it's hard work. But it's, even when it's going to be hard work, you still don't, there's never a day that I'm regretting having to go do something. I just don't ever have those days.
Yeah. You've got 3 boys, your wife and 3 boys. How long have you been married?
We'll be married 20 years this February.
Awesome. And you got 3 boys, and what's it like for you to have the opportunity to raise boys on a ranch?
For us, we talk about this a lot, and we often wonder, what would your kids be like if it was a totally different life for them? And it's hard to look at them now as they're teenagers, and you look at them and you're kind of like, well, I can't imagine them being anybody other than just who they are.
Right.
For us, it's been great. I watch my boys, and I call them boys, but they're young men. They're becoming young men. There's not a whole lot they can't do, which makes me really proud as their dad. They are generous to a fault. They understand what life and death means. When you raise boys or kids anyway on a ranch or a farm, they understand pretty quick that baby cows die. Your old horses that you've had for years they don't live forever. They start to learn early on. And I think when they're little, sometimes you feel like you want to shelter them from that. But I was pretty cautious about that. I felt like it was necessary not to cause them trauma, obviously, but for them to see, like, this is reality. This is what this is. And this is how we live. And they understand that. And then now, as they have grown, you see the you get to kind of see the fruits of your labor there. And for me, I can't imagine. I grew up that way. Paige grew up that way. The fact that we could watch our boys grow up that way, and hopefully with the ranch continuing a legacy for them to raise their kids that way, I feel like it's some of maybe what we're missing in the world that we live in now a little bit. And
Yeah.
So if we can bring a little bit of that back, I'm happy to do that for sure.
Yeah. I have a question for you here from somebody watching.
Sure.
It's a great question. I get this question a lot, so it's an opportunity to really help educate people on your operation. So she said your beef is grass-fed and grain finished. Why grain at all? So she just wants to learn.
Yeah, for sure. So we can do completely grass finished beef. One of the reasons that we do grain finished beef is because the beef, pretty much all the beef that everyone eats, has been grain finished, right? They have a certain amount of grain, and what that does is it affects the flavor profile of the meat itself. If you have ever eaten beef that is from a grocery store or a high-end meat market anywhere, most 99.9% of that beef has been finished with grain. Now, you can finish cattle completely grass-fat cattle.
Mm-hmm.
You can finish them on grass. However, that beef will taste different than grain-finished beef. So it is completely palate-oriented, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell people is if you want a fully grass-finished beef, I have them make sure you have at least tried that somewhere because it will not taste like the same beef that you might be used to.
Yeah. And your palate's trained. It's not that it's not good. You're just used to tasting a certain way. Yeah.
And it's not, I don't know that one is any better than the other. Now, I think if you have folks that like a beef that is a little leaner and it has a different flavor profile. And I don't want to say that it's gamey.
Yeah.
But it does have it's a little stronger tasting beef, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The grain helps it have that rich, a little more that rich, like buttery type taste, if you will. And that's where the grain comes in. So we use a locally sourced grain. All we use is local corn. We don't use anything other filler other than that. So the corn does help to balance that profile. Now we do have a customer too that is just like, they like the flavor of grass fat beef. And most of them though, that's what they were raised on.
Yeah.
They've always eaten a beef that's that way. And they sold beef and then, their family kept one back, right? Or they got one from the neighbor and they didn't grain finish them. They just grass finished. I would say 9 out of 10 people, if I put 2 steaks on a plate and have you taste a grain finished. Now when I say grain finished, they never go off grass. They're 100%. So when they go grain finished, they eat free choice, all the grass, the hay that we cut off the ranch. They eat all of that they want. And then they get a little bit of grain every day in comparison to their forage. So it's just that a little extra to help that. All it is for solid flavor profile, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you, I've been asking this question because I've been trying to figure out what's what. It's looking into this very focused is very new. Not a lot of people have been doing this with the availability of the tools to do the science to the level that we can now.
Sure.
So I was talking to a guy named Dr. Stefan Van Fleet. Want to get him on the podcast. He's a professor at Utah State or SU or something like that. And so he's with the Bionutrient Health Institute. And so what they're doing is they're doing this massive study on soil biology and its impact on forage, the quality of forage and its impact on the animal's health and the impact that has on its meat, and then its meat and its impact on humans. Like, it's this huge study where he was saying that usually people will look and they'll just look at one area. So we're going to just study soil health, or we're just going to study plant health. And this is one of the biggest studies where they're doing the whole thing, right? So they've got a lot of research on this. And I've seen nutrient density reports from them on regenerative beef and how it's 65 to 75% higher in some cases compared to conventional beef. Now, the conventional side is your feedlot beef in the massive commodity market where they're spending far more time just eating grain because they're going to fatten them as fast as they can. That's one of the ways they do it. Where you have like free choice forage and some grain, in some of these operations, it's just grain because we got to get them fat as fast as we can in the next, couple of months.
Right. And massive restrictions on their movement. They don't move around.
Yeah, exactly. And so I asked him, as he was doing this presentation, he was talking about they're actually finding that animals given some grain towards the end, there are nutritional values in corn and grain that then pass on to the animal. So I don't know this yet, but I think it has something to do with the length of time that they're being finished, right? If they're eating just corn for 6 months to a year, that's way different than 30, 60, maybe maxing out at 120 days on grain, right? At some point, it really is like nature and humans, right? At some point, if I have a certain, if I have a certain limit of carbohydrates in my diet, that's good for me. But if I'm all carbohydrates, I'm going to get obese, right? So it's the same thing for animals. And so I would say that like the last bulk order we bought was just grass fed and finished. I was good with that because in my head, I'm like, you know what? I can handle the flavor because there's supposed to be more nutrients. But I was the only one in the house that was okay with that. So we specifically said, okay, we want to find something grass fed up to a certain age and then finished on grain for a shorter portion of time. And it did matter to us that they had free choice because now the animal can choose what it's needing. And animals are not like humans. They're going to be drawn to certain things their body needs because they're more in tune than we as humans are, right? We'll keep eating the same shit and waking up the next day feeling bloated and like crap.
Right. And they eat it
Animals won't do that. Right. They're not going to necessarily do that if they have a choice. Right. So just wanted to add what I've learned on that side as well. And that's why we ultimately decided to buy beef from you this time, because we wanted that corn and grain finishing process. We wanted to have that in, and it was some things like vitamin K go up and certain things that will increase with some grain and corn given to it. So again, everybody's different, to each your own.
Yep, absolutely.
We just should know as people what we're getting when we're getting it and have that transparency.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big thing is having the option. And like I said, we do weigh that out. And we do have a few folks that they prefer fully grass fed and finished. And then and we're happy to accommodate that as well. I would just say, again, the vast majority of folks, prefer that one to be same as what you're talking about, free choice on their forage. They're given a little bit of grain for, a 60-day time frame, and then they go to butcher.
Awesome. Cool. I'm going to share this real quick with everybody so that you can see how to find Brad if you're looking to buy beef. So this is our overall general map. You can actually see Brad has pins in 3 different locations because he's willing to deliver to multiple locations. He delivers hay from Montana to Florida. So pretty much if you're along this corridor here, you can order. If you're down in this area, go ahead and click on his, pin that's down in this area, but he's also going to deliver down here. We're doing some big brand activation, big launch strategies that we're launching first of the year. We're going to focus on Phoenix. We're going to onboard more producers in Phoenix, but we've got all of these producers on the Rocky Mountain West that can help feed the Phoenix market. There are some regional, as much as we would love to be hyper local, there are regional needs. But anyway, you can come on here, click on Brad's ranch, go to his farm, and then you can shop right here from Brad and his family, get to see some of the photos of them out working, seeing his boys and everybody out there doing what they love to do. So anyway, Brad, I appreciate you being here, brother. Great to spend some time with you the other day.
Yeah, it was great. I was really glad to have you out. So you're always welcome. And hopefully you can bring the family up and we can give them a tour as well. Yeah,
I'm going to take you up on that. We're going to bring them up for dinner. So
absolutely.
Last little bit for everybody. We're going to be in Phoenix January 18th. Stay tuned for the details on that, where and when you can find us. Brad's going to come down and join us. So if you guys have questions, if you're in that area, we'd love to let you shake the hand that feeds you. That's our whole thing. You know, the support, the social media follows, the investments. We are very clear that those are coming from people to help our farmers and ranchers. We don't succeed unless our farmers and ranchers succeed first. And so we like to just give the accolades back where they belong. People are following us because of the farmers and ranchers, not because of our idea. Now, our idea helps make the connection, but without our producers, it wouldn't matter. We'd be trying to help you connect with the big corporations, and we're not doing that. So anyway, with that, Brad, thanks for being here. You can go ahead and take off, brother. I'm going to roll us out with this last video. Everybody else, thanks for being on the podcast today. Apologize, we've been gone. It's been a busy holiday season, so we missed you the last couple of weekends, but thanks for joining us. And with that, shake the hand that feeds you. Wrong one. And I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. And it's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows, and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves were empty.
We, the people, can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies or buying local is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses. I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future.
Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.